This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com. And it's even in the Observer in August of 96 that Ken has had discussions with the WWF, but ultimately his demands were too high. Would you have been the guy to make contact and reach out, or who would have been the person in touch?
I did. I'm the one that actually did reach out to Ken and bring Ken in for the initial talks. Yeah, and I did the deal with Kenny at the time.
Do you remember what that conversation looked like? I'm not asking for financial specifics, but are you discussing creative, or is it simply just dates and cash?
No, it was simply at that point. No, it's would you like to come in? Hey, would you like to come on in and talk and explore, coming to work with us? And once everybody comes in, and then you get into the point of, you need to know if they're interested. You need to know if they want to come in. So you take that next step and you expound on it and go, okay, yeah, they want to come in. Here's what we could do creatively. And then you get into money from there. But that's never discussed up front.
Not asking this to be funny, but I am curious. Like, we've had the conversation here before about Kurt Angle, where Kurt said on the initial meeting, well, I can't lose. Was there a concern?
You know, you want to know something? I got a funny story for you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You brought that up.
Yeah.
I had a whole list of guys that had come in right around that Kurt Angle time.
Yeah.
And with my notes, and I wrote on Kurt's, Goof doesn't want to lose, next. So there you go. Funny how shit comes around.
Well, I'm just curious from a Ken Shamrock standpoint, he probably felt like he was on a great trajectory with the UFC, and then they ran into a host of problems. No one could have predicted the UFC was going to become what it did. But at that point, did he still think, even though he respected pro wrestling and he had trained in it before, hey man, I don't want to hurt my ability to draw over here. I know they're having problems right now, but I still need to quote unquote look strong. Is there any sort of conversation like that with Ken at the time?
I think Ken was a businessman. No, there really wasn't. I think that Ken kind of viewed his,
he understood it was different.
Yes.
So we're back.
We are back. Hey. It's Something to Wrestle with, Bruce Prichard, with my host, Conrad Thompson.
So Ken's a businessman. He sees them separately. He understands the difference. Was he trying to be nimble in his contract? Like, hey, if an opportunity comes up and I can do a big super fight, I don't want to have to turn that down. Did something like that happen?
I think absolutely Ken was looking that way, because Ken still felt that he had more fights in him and wanted to be able to explore that avenue if it became available again. So he knew that there were still some big fights out there that people would want to see. And we were looking at it as, you're going to be an attraction for WWE. We don't want to screw that up by you going out and having a shoot fight and getting injured or something.
So the Observer in October of 96, so 2 months after the initial report, would write this: the WWF reports are that Ken Shamrock's demands are much higher than what they're paying everyone else that's coming in new, which is why the negotiations went nowhere. It's been reported that Shamrock is looking for $500,000 as a guarantee. So it sounds like it was primarily probably money. I mean, is that really the original gist? He just overvalued himself and he needed to prove himself or what have you?
Well, yeah, definitely he was looking for a lot more money than we were willing to pay at that time. And it was at a time that he was looking at, well, if I did this fight and I did that fight and I did this other fight and then I did that fight, that he felt he could get there.
Yeah.
But that was also, if you won this fight, won that fight,
Yeah.
one led into the other. There was really no guarantee on that. And we were looking to make a star. We were looking to make him, a superstar out of him and take him to the next level and elongate his career. Instead of going out there and getting the shit beat out of his body, come on in and work. And Ken worked hard. Ken worked snug. And his stuff was believable because he was believable. And you looked at it. What really broke down, frankly, was at one point dealing with Hattori, the New Japan representative, who was the referee, I believe, over there. And That's back when, this is probably before your time, they had call waiting on your phone.
Oh yeah, I
Call
remember
waiting,
that. Yeah.
and you would hit the thing and you'd switch over to the other call. Well, sometimes you would get caught and you would click over and you would think you're on the other call talking to someone else and the didn't actually click over. And I'm talking to Hattori, who was speaking to me in broken English, giving me the impression that he didn't speak much English and didn't understand what I was saying, and that his English was spotty. And then he clicked over and apparently was speaking to Eric Bischoff on the other line,
Clear as a bell.
and was, okay, hey, Eric, yeah, man, I got WWF on the other line and they're wanted. And it was a completely different everything.
Yes.
And I'm like going, hey, yeah, no, man, it's still Bruce, but your English got better. And it was just dead silence, like, rut row, and kind of fell through from there. And I called Kenny and told him, and he laughed about it. But then the, negotiations just got between Ken and myself and Vince.
So there are talks with New Japan about Ken Shamrock, and his last fight for the UFC is December of 96 against Brian Johnston. He gets a win, but he breaks his hand. Once he's on Vince's radar, do you think Vince is watching the pay-per-views just to keep up with what's happening with him?
I I really don't know. I have no idea. I know that if there was something cool to see, we would tape it and bring it in and show him, but there wasn't all, back in those days, it wasn't that much cool to see.
Right.
They were kind of boring.
So it's training. He starts training in 1997 to fight in MMA, as if nothing's going to happen with the WWF or New Japan. And then it's reported at a house show in Stockton, California, that he's mobbed by fans looking for autographs. So I don't know if this was just a strategy on his point, but when he just shows up to the house show here for the WWF, boy, he gets a lot of attention for himself. And then it's reported that Shamrock was back in negotiations for the Tokyo Dome show for April 12th. The idea being they wanted to have a sort of worked shoot fight, if you will, for the Tokyo Dome. And he maybe even would have been in the main event. And somewhere in here, it looks like, well, plans change. Meltzer would write, Shamrock, 33, signed a 3-year guaranteed exclusive contract with the WWF for a low 7-figure downside guarantee and a signing bonus. In addition, Vince McMahon has the option after 3 years to continue the contract for an additional 3 years without Shamrock having the option to test himself at that point on the free agent market. The contract is exclusive, ending Shamrock's participation in the Ultimate Fighting Championship or any shoot fighting events. At least at press time, this appears to kill what some Japanese insiders were expecting to wind up being the biggest money match in pro wrestling history, a proposed April 12th match for the IWGP Championship at the Tokyo Dome against Hashimoto. Shamrock debuted on Monday Night Raw later that evening at the Manhattan Center, portrayed as a celebrity in the audience, attending the matches with his father Bob and his wife Tina. They showed him in the early in the crowd, and he was put over as a major star, with them talking about him as a superstar from the controversial UFC and called him a UFC champion, and even said that ABC television called him the world's most dangerous human being. About 45 minutes into the show, he was interviewed by Jerry Lawler, who tried to claim they were best friends, and he had taught him all of his submission holds. Of course, Shamrock was acting like he didn't know who Lawler was. The segment really didn't work. Later in the show, he was interviewed again, but this time by Todd Pettengill, and asked about the 2 WrestleMania main event matches. At this point, Farouk came out and got in his face and made a disparaging remark about the UFC, and Shamrock did a wrestling promo back. For some reason, the camera wasn't on him as he made his comeback, and he said he'd take him on one-on-one if Vince McMahon would sign the match. This segment didn't come off as neither good nor bad, and Shamrock is going to have to get the mega push from the WWF to justify his contract. So it's pretty well acknowledged he's going to either wind up as a major superstar in American wrestling or a flop. There is no in between. And based on his first appearance, there's no hint at all as to which it will end up being. It wasn't positive that the live crowd took to him like a star, popped for him big and the mentions of the UFC, and even chanted his name during the interview. What do you remember about finally putting him on paper and then his first appearance here in the crowd on Raw? And this is kind of a special Raw here. I mean, I remember this like it was yesterday. What do you remember of that day?
Well, it was just, a great debut for Ken. We want to bring Ken in differently as for who he was to the uh, outside world, to the MMA world, and to those people that weren't familiar with Ken Shamrock. You had to introduce him, and you had to make him out to somebody. Of course, Meltzer's numbers are incorrect, but we did a deal with him. We got that done, and Ken knew that there was an upside to that he could potentially do a lot more than what was a downside guarantee at the time. But Kenny coming in, it was, like a mistake that he got involved, and, we didn't shoot it for a reason, because it's like, okay, this isn't supposed to happen, but then you accidentally, shoot it type thing. So I thought Ken did great. It was the right response. New York City, an enthusiastic audience that got who Ken Shamrock was and made him a star for being there outside of our world. And then Ken immediately mixed in our world. He did exactly what we were looking for him to do and delivered well.
So, I know we're not going to talk about money, but ultimately, what got the deal done? After you had been sort of playing hokey pokey for a few months to finally get him on paper, was there a concession or a talk of creative, or what was it that just closed the deal, do you think?
I can't tell you from Ken's point. I can surmise, I can guess. I think that it was a combination of longevity and knowing that he's not going to go in the ring and get knocked out and get hurt and be unable to earn for 6 months. He knew that this could, be an ongoing gig that would continue to be able to pay him and his family, where he had a secured downside guarantee with the ability to out earn that if he got over and really got out and work. So all of those things combined, I think, are what did it. When you look at, all right, you're only as good as your last fight in USC.
Talk to me about the WCW thing. I mentioned that because it's reported in the Observer that Ken Shamrock at least mentioned that he was supposed to be meeting with WCW. And just to add context, this is when the WWF is kind of scrambling a little bit. The NWO is heating up. The 83-week streak has started. WWF has
How long
always
did
been,
that last? Oh, okay, go ahead. See what I did there?
but the point is, the WWF, who had always been the leader in sports entertainment, is now, in second place in a lot of these different categories. Do you think the threat of, oh shit, we can't let him go to WCW, ultimately made this deal happen on you guys' side?
I think it was no. I think it was along the lines of the proven commodity versus, okay, well, these guys are hot now. How long are they going to stay hot? And WWE was a bit of a proven commodity.
Do you
I think Ken was secure in that.
Goldberg's going to show up in September of 97 on Nitro. Hypothetically, do you think Shamrock, had he jumped to WCW, would have been in the Goldberg position had he gone in February of 97?
No, I don't. I think that Goldberg was Goldberg, and Goldberg is a unique animal unto himself that was created and, done very well there. Like, they kept Bill's stuff short. Shamrock could do a lot more than Goldberg could. Goldberg didn't need to do a lot more. So I think it's apples and pomegranates.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.